What is going on, everyone? Tis Miyanovich, and I welcome you to the main dojo, the place where we process the raw struggles of men in an unprecedented paradigm. There is something inside of you that wants you to be more than what you are. But there also may be something inside of you that wants you to go down. And for some of us, that means going down for good. So, remove your ego, drop your bullshit, become vulnerable, and step into the dojo, mate. Now we're going to do the thing I really wanted to talk to you about with real talk, which is the modeling world. So
this is an even crazier story, but
I'm surprised you're not in rehab or something, dude. Like with all the shit you've been, your resilience to this shit is like amazing, Michael. It really is amazing. So one night you're in a club hanging out, and the next thing you know, Michael is in Playgirl naked.
Playgirl magazine, yeah.
One night you're in a club with your friends, and you snap your fingers, and then you're naked in Playgirl magazine. How in the fuck did that happen?
So I was out partying in New York City. Keep in mind, I went to Arizona State. I was probably the only Sun Devil to go the entire time through college at ASU without drinking or doing any drugs. Like stone cold sober for 4 years. I graduate college, go back to my family's business to work at Eagle Imports as a gun thing. Totally depressed because I didn't want to work there. I didn't want to work for my family. I wanted to do something else. So I'm working for my family. I'm super depressed. Kind of go out in New York City one night and life changes for me. Start having some drinks, start relaxing a little bit, and kind of realizing, okay, this is what your life's going to be. And it's kind of funny because now I look back and I'm like, man, you should have just kept that job and just stayed right there. Like, I ended up going back to Eagle Imports and owning it and running it. But, so I'm in this club and this guy comes up to me and he's like, listen, man, I'm a gay man, right? He's like, I'm not hitting on you. You're beautiful, blah, 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 blah. He goes, seriously, I'm not hitting on you, but if you ever want to do Playgirl, here's my card. I would love, to make that connection for you. And, I took the card and I was just like, thanks. I appreciate it. I go back down to, I think I was like talking to my mom or something. And I'm like, yeah, this guy from allegedly Playgirl gave me his card the other day and it was a media company. You know what I mean? Like it didn't say Playgirl on it. And I remember my mom's like, call him. Like why, if he's legit and hear him out. Like maybe he could be in Playgirl. Like, why not? Like you live once. Like I remember like that was her attitude. Right. And, I ended up calling him and he hooked me up with this lady at Playgirl. And, it's so funny because this is back in the day before like cell phones were really common. And, I didn't even have a cell phone yet. Beepers were the thing, but I had given him I was living at my grandparents' house. And, so one day I'm in Florida, like working with my uncle. We were at like some firearms trade show. I can't remember which one. It was down there in Tampa. And my grandmother calls me and she goes, Michael, one of your friends is playing a joke on you. They just left a message on the answering machine and said they Playgirl magazine. Here's the number, but da, 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 da. And, I ended up calling them and they were like, yeah, we'd be interested in having you, be a centerfold if you wanted to do that. But, first we need you to send in some Polaroids of you, if you don't mind. And I'm like, okay, but they gave me the address. And I remember like, it was a New York City office address. And, that was a funny story in itself because I had to find a friend that would take a photo of me nude.
Too bad we weren't friends back then, dude. I would have been like, all day, dude, let's do it. Let's do this shit.
But so me and my buddy get through it. I send up the Polaroids back then because that was the way that they did everything. Everything was with Polaroids. And, sure enough, eventually we end up hearing from them. At first, I didn't hear from them for months, and it was crazy because I was like, oh, I guess I'm not Playgirl material. But then one day they called and they were like, yeah, we're really interested in flying you down to Miami and shooting this, and we'll pay for everything. And, here's what you get paid, which was peanuts. It was nothing in the big scheme of things. So I ended up going down to Miami and shooting Playgirl, the Playgirl centerfold there. And the photographer was there. I remember he was there with his boyfriend, and they were like, why aren't you doing regular modeling? And I was like, I'm not trying to be a model. Like this fell into my lap, and they're like, you should try to be a real model. Like you should really try to be a real. And, I remember like the photographer, I think his name is Martin Myers. Martin Myers was his name. I don't know. God only knows if he's alive still, but I remember he was super cool. He's like, listen, man, we're going to knock this out. Cause it was like a beach thing. I was on the beach, Could have
gotten in trouble. You could have gotten in trouble because your dong's hanging out in a public beach.
Well, I think we went to some kind of like nude beach where,
where
it was fine. It was empty. But they had a location. We went there to shoot, and he was like, look, let's take these photos. And then he's like, then we're going to take photos of you clothes when you get back to Jersey, cause he was the photographer's from New York City.
Yeah.
He goes, come up for a couple of days. I'm going to send you on a bunch of castings to, a bunch of, different, agencies, so that's, people always are like, hey, do you regret doing Playgirl? I'm like, no, because if I didn't do Playgirl, I would have never had the modeling.
Yeah.
I would have never have done what Martin said. I would have never have had someone to take photos of me like that, professional photos to kind of get a book together to go see some agencies. So that was the catalyst. It was the thing that jump started my modeling career, but that's how I ended up in Playgirl.
So they said, we want you to do a centerfold sight unseen. This gay guy sees you in the bar who's a photographer, and he calls Playgirl and says, I saw this fucking stunner at a bar. You need to get him as a centerfold. And they call you and they go, without seeing any pictures of you, we want you to do a centerfold.
Well, they said that I would be up for being in the magazine, but they were like, we need you to send Polaroids in.
Okay, I see. So we're considering you for a centerfold. Yeah. Okay.
Like we trust whoever this guy was.
Of course.
We trust his judgment, and we just need to see the Polaroids.
I'm telling you, this dude went in there and he said something on level of, I want to fuck this kid so bad. He looks so good. Like I'm trying to be cool, but I never wanted to fuck a kid so bad. It had to be something that level because here's my guess, Mike. There were other good looking males in that fucking bar. There were probably other good looking people, and he didn't go up to everybody. He went straight to you like, he didn't say this to you, but he went, holy shit. And that's why he walked up to you. It wasn't like, oh, there's a good looking gentleman. He went, fuck. And he walked right up to you. And then he goes to Penthouse or Playgirl. Holy shit. And they go, okay, that sounds like good. Get us some pictures. So he had to have had a giant reaction to you.
He had great taste in men, man.
Of course he did. Of course. Of course. If he only knew you were an angel in your heart. Also, this is like a cream shot for an older gay dude. This is a fucking cream dream of a night. And I think when he was like, I'm gay, but I'm not hitting on you, that was probably fucking 90% bullshit. He was probably 10% like, if this dude falls in my lap, it's going to be the best. But I'm saying that because I want to reintroduce us to this thing because I think as men, we need to talk about this. Looks are matter. I don't care what the fucking far left social justice warriors are saying about no one should be judging. Fucking it's bullshit. Humans are going to judge other humans on looks. And you were born with a gift and you are exceptionally good looking. You're exceptionally good looking human, period.
I thank you. I love this podcast. This is doing great for my ego. I
can't believe, well, first and foremost, I can't believe that nobody's talked to you about this. Like no one has ever had you on a podcast and talked to you about this. No one in guns has ever talked about this.
I've had a couple people bring it up. Like jokingly, but in the beginning I shied away from it, to be honest, because I didn't want, I was like, okay, I'm starting Walk Talk America. I don't want to be taken serious. So
yeah. And maybe that's one of the reasons why you whaled yourself up a little bit too, subconsciously. Maybe you just had to meatball yourself up, a little bit subconsciously so that people knew that this was all about heart, because maybe people wouldn't take you as seriously if like when you're an ego inflated, super good looking person or something. It's just conjecture on my part, but I'm being scientific about this too. It's quite important, and maybe it's going to make you feel uncomfortable, but you are really a really good looking human. Like when you look at those pictures that you did, for whether it's the Playgirl or whether it's with Lagerfeld, you are gifted in the looks category, like a motherfucker gifted, like very, very high, very, very high level, very, very high level. So it doesn't surprise me, right? They were right. That gay dude was right. And Lagerfeld was right, because they don't look at you and go, this is a good looking human. We could use him. There's a reaction to you that's like, oh, fuck this guy. Well, I mean, how, like, you've said before, I'll let you speak after I say this one thing. You said before you Forrest Gump your way through life. Right?
Well, yeah.
Like, you don't know what the fuck is going on, and then this shit happens to you. Well, I'm just telling you, one of the reasons why you're able to Forrest Gump your way through life and shit happens for you is if there are 8 billion people on the planet, you're probably in the top 10,000 or 20,000 in the looks category. That's a fucking reality. People are reacting to you because of that. Not during Meatball Mike phase, but otherwise, people are reacting to you like that. And it's powerful, dude. It's a very powerful thing. So what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, I agree with you there. So I have 2 daughters, and they're both stunningly beautiful.
They are very beautiful. You're very lucky. They're good people too.
Yeah. And their mother, was probably one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Yeah. I was just with them in Alabama. My daughter goes to Alabama, and I was, it's nice because, I can talk about their mother now in ways that, they're older. So I could do like, she was a showstopper. Like, she was the girl in the movie where she walked into the room and everything paused and everyone had to move in slow motion while she walks. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. Do looks get you certain places? Yeah, 100%. Right. It only can get you so far, right? You got to still be a good person. But, when you're a beautiful woman, and this is what I was telling my daughters, I'm like, you keep your head on straight. You're going to get opportunities. Like, people are going to want to hold your hair while you're throwing up. You know what I mean?
For sure, dude.
Yeah. Like, it's crazy, but when I meant by like Forrest Gumping too, because this is like a really interesting story of how the modeling thing happened, because it didn't just fall into my lap. It seems like it did, but so continuing on, go to Miami, do the shoot, go up to New York. I take a couple days off work and I go to Martin's studio, and Martin is like, okay, I got you a couple appointments at a couple agencies, and then there's a few agencies that, I think you should look at. I don't know anybody there, but just call and ask when they're doing an open call, because that's the way it used to work. Right. And it was crazy because, I'm super confident because Martin's telling me like, I got you in with Next. I got you in with Boss. Like, these are all people I know. So I'm like, okay, it'll be about me choosing which, modeling agency I want to go with, as opposed to like me out there hustling. So I'm going to all these agencies, and I'm getting rejected left and right. Literally. Like the first day, like 6 agencies are like, no, sorry. Like, we can't do anything with you. Blah, 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 blah. I go to Next, which was a huge modeling agency. I don't know if they're still around, but, and the person I talked to was like, maybe, right? They give me this maybe, like, we need to think about it. And, so I'm moving on, and that night, I go back to Martin's place, and I was just like, yeah, man, I'm getting like rejected left and right. And I was like pretty pissed off because I'm like, I took a couple days off of work to come up here to get told I couldn't be a model. And, people had told me all my whole life, like, oh, you could model, like you could do this, you could do that. So I'm like, well, maybe I can't, like maybe it's not in me. Like they are not seeing what you see in me. And Martin's like, yeah, that's really weird. Okay, well, what's going on? Like, for how many more you have left? And I was like, there's like 5 left on the thing. So I had Boss, and I went to Boss, and Boss at the time had like Marcus Schenkenberg and Simon Rex. And as soon as I walked in, I was like, I'm going to get rejected by, I think they had Mark Vanderloo. Like they had some pretty high level, like, male models. So I walk in and I get rejected right away. Right. So I go outside, and I'm hungry, and it's in the middle of the winter. You know what I mean? Like it's December, and I buy a sandwich, and I go into the alleyway right next to Boss, where Boss was located, and I'm eating a sandwich, and this girl walks by, and stunning, and she stops, and she sees me, and she keeps walking. Like she looks, and she keeps walking, and then she comes back. So I'm eating a sandwich, and I have my book that Martin put together for me, which is like a few, different shots. And she goes, hey, you're a model, right? And I go, no. And she goes, but you're trying to be one? And I go, not really. Cause now I'm a little embarrassed. Like, right. And she goes, are you going to go into Boss? And I go, yeah. Now I don't have the heart to tell, like in my head, I'm like, dude, lie. She's like, you're going to Boss? I'm like, yeah, I'm going in there in a minute. I'm just eating in the alleyway. And she's like, they're going to reject you. And I was like, oh, really? Now I've already been rejected. Right. So she's like, yeah, you don't want to go with them. She's like, you're perfect for Click. She's like, you'd be good for Click. Now I don't know any of these names. Yeah. Like, I don't know what these mean. You know what I mean? So she's like, listen, if you want, she's like, I have a friend named David that is a booker at Click, and I can call for you and set up a meeting. And I was like, oh, that would be awesome. Cool. And, she takes a check. She has a check, and she rips off the piece of her check that has her phone number on it. And she gives it to me with her name. And she goes, call me later. I got some things I got to do, but call me later. Now I'm like, I won't just want to call you later because you're beautiful. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I end up going back to Martin's, studio, and I'm like, yeah, I just met this girl. And he's like, yeah, she just probably wants to get with you. Like, he's like, you should call Click and see if there's even a David. So I call Click, and I'm like, is David there? And they're like, this is David. And I hung up the phone. I'm like, there's a David there. And he's like, okay. He's like, go give her a call. So I call, and I'm like, hey, look, did you make that appointment for me? I'm the guy you met, in the alleyway. And she's like, oh my God, give me 5 minutes. I'll call, So Martin's like, literally like, okay, see, here we go. Right. And sure enough, like, she calls me, and she's like, okay, tomorrow at like 1:00, you're going to go see David, and tell him I said hi. And I was like, thank you so much. I'll call you, let you know how it goes. Yeah. She's like, okay. So I go out that night because I have friends in New York City, and I end up meeting an old kid that, I'm from New Jersey. We call everybody kid, even if they're older than us, right? Yeah. Like this kid that I went to, he was older than me. And his name was Steve Brown, and his brother's name was Ray Brown, and both of them were models. So my high school, there were like 6 male models that came out of my high school in Jersey. And one of them, the most famous one, was this guy, Eric Neese, who was on the very first Real World.
I remember that dude.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he hosted The Grind, and yeah. So, I'm out that night, and I end up at Steve Brown's apartment in New York City. And he's like, hey man, how are you? He's older. He was like 3 or 4 years older than me. Right. I'm like, I'm good. And he's like, what are you doing up here? I'm like, oh, I'm just trying to do this modeling thing. And he's like, oh shit. He's like, who are you going to go see? And at this time he's in banking. He works in banking now. He's been out of the modeling thing for a while. And, I said, I'm supposed to go to Click tomorrow. And he goes, who are you supposed to see? And I go, David. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, Ray and Teddy and Steve and Eric, we were all with Click. Wow. And he goes, so tell David, when you see him, tell him Steve Brown said hi. I go, you don't mind, cause I didn't really know him.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't mind if I name drop you like that? And he's like, no, just do it. So I end up going to the meeting, and David is like, where are you from? And I'm like, Ocean Township, New Jersey. That's like where I went to high school. And I remember David's like, what the hell do they put in the water down there? Like, you know, he's like, listen, you know, we're interested. I'll sign you right now. And he gives me the contract. Now he's like, who else you talking to? And I literally lie. And I'm just like, I have a meeting with boss. I met with Next, you know, they told me to call them. And, you know, cause I didn't want to seem too desperate, right?
Sure.
Like I'm at the end of my rope. And, he's like, look, take a couple hours. He's like, look at the contract if you're interested. And really with the contract, there's no, they're not giving you any money. They're just you're just signing your life away to them. Like, cause they're going to invest in you, right, and you got to pay them back. Right.
Sure,
like that's how that shit works. So I end up, going downstairs and bullshitting and like trying to read a contract that I had no business reading because I don't even understand that jargon and the lingo. And, I'm like, I got to kill time to make it look like I'm wanted. Right. So I end up going up there and I'm like, you know what? I'll sign with you guys. Like, that's cool. Like, definitely I'm interested, you know, signing the paper. He's like, hey, that girl that called? I'm like, yeah. He's like, who is that girl? And I'm like, I don't know. She says she knows you. He's like, I have no idea who she is. He's like, but let's call her right now and I'll thank her. And he like literally calls her. It goes to her voicemail or, you know, her answer machine. And he's like, we love him. Thank you for sending him over. Call me. Hangs up. He's like, I don't know who that is. Right. So it was really odd. So I sign, I end up going back to Martin, telling Martin, look, I signed with Click. And he's like, that's a good agency for you. Like, that's a perfect agency for you. And, I remember I called the girl and she's like, hey, I got the message from David. So you signed with Click. And I was like, yeah. And I tell her the story about, you know, running into Steve and how everything worked out. And I was just like, listen, can I take you out to dinner sometime when I come back to the city? Because I really owe you. Now, keep in mind, I also am like attracted to her. Yeah. So, you know, and she's like, absolutely. Just give me a call next time you're in the city. Like, you can take me to dinner. And I'm like, cool. Next time I go out to the city or like think I'm going to the city, I'm calling. All it would do is go right to this like thing where it would beep and it'd be dead. I never was able to get a hold of that lady again.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's like she came into my life, helped me out, and then became a ghost. You know what I mean? Crazy. Yeah. So, that was the start of my relationship with Click. And then, right away, like right out of the chute, which was the worst thing that could have happened for me, is, you know, I land the Abercrombie and Fitch campaign, with Bruce Weber, who's like a high fashion photographer. He ended up getting caught up in the Me Too thing. There's a documentary about him on Netflix. You know, it's about Abercrombie. Yeah. But that was like the first real job I got, you know, modeling. And, I kind of wish it didn't go that well, just because like my expectation level of what was next was very skewed, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know, not realizing like it's not going to be like this all the time. So you get frustrated when it's not. And one thing people have to understand, I'm not sitting up here to be like, oh, the male models, right, but you know, modeling, Zoolander, like modeling is, there is no health insurance benefits. There are no benefits, period. You could make $5,000-$6,000 in a month from one job and then not work for 3 or 4 months. Right. Like there's no guarantee for the next job. Right. And, you know, some of these guys that I was living in, there was a thing called a model's apartment, mm-hmm, that I was living in. And, you know, some of these kids like came from like Iowa and they were like bartending at night and literally had been doing it for 2 years and only gotten a little picture in Cosmo, you know what I mean? When it's like the night he gave me herpes, or you know what I mean? Like, cause you never knew what, like when you got like into magazines, you never knew what the thing was, right, you know what I mean? Just like these stock photos. But that was like how it started. Like that was kind of like the meteoric rise that it took, you know, landing the Weber job, for Abercrombie, you know, right out of the gate was a gift and a curse. You know what I mean? But you know, so that's how it happened.
Did you notice a change in yourself at all So I'm going to guess the answer is no. But when you start hanging around a lot of really good looking people and people place a lot of emphasis on looks, a very high level emphasis on looks. Did you ever get to the point where you were like, we're over here and the ugly people are over there? Oh, those are poor, ugly humans. Did you ever get like an elitism about yourself?
Not that. No, I got more like a fucking, as soon as I moved up to New York, I did that to Jersey. I was like, fuck bridge and tunnel. Like the minute I learned the subway system, I was like, I'm fucking a New Yorker now. Like, fuck them over in Jersey.
But you never got caught up in this like elitism about looks necessarily. Well, I'm gonna assume something is that you're definitely not like looking for or opening your heart to girls that are mediocre looking or ugly. Like you're going to be taking advantage of the fact that you should have been around some of the most beautiful people ever. And those are the people that you're interested in. Did you have a part of you that was like, I don't care who she is if I meet her? Like if she's a good person, I'm just going to be with her. Did you have that going on at all?
Yeah, and I was with beautiful women in college. I went to Arizona State, which is like ground zero for beautiful women and beautiful people, right? So it's just like, I never really looked at it that way in terms of, I think I would have been open if someone was really awesome. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I wasn't ready at that point when I first started modeling to be really in a relationship anyways.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It was like hookup central.
Oh my God, it was great. Like all you had to do, we had all these like stupid little moves that we would do. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like the first time I was on a billboard in New York City, like, you know, I was getting calls from like people in high school and they're like, are you on a billboard in New York City? And like, they had no idea I'd started modeling, you know what I mean? And like, you were driving in the Lincoln Tunnel and like, you could see like a billboard of mine. But there are times when, you know, you do the move where you're just like, I'm on a date and I'm going to make it look like I just found myself on that. But oh, look, there I am on that billboard. Like we just so happened to be down here.
I didn't even fucking know. I thought they were going to put me in a fishing catalog.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, you know, you knew the power. Here's the cool thing. There was no internet back then.
Yeah.
And there were no cell phones with cameras, right? There was like a Motorola StarTAC. Like no one had cameras. So it was like the Wild West, like the nightclubs. And what was cool about being with an agency like Click, if I wanted to go to like the Sound Factory or the Tunnel or Limelight, I could just have the agency put me on the list.
Yeah.
And, you know, cause they wanted models there. So they would, you know, that was the fun part. It was before bottle service and, you know, there were VIP sections, but there was no like snobbiness to it. It was like a nice, crazy party.
Yeah.
And they were very selective of who they let into these clubs, you know, cause it was the old 54 days, like hangover thing, you know, where they were still doing the thing where they were really choosy. But that was the cool thing, living in the model's apartment with all the other models and being able to be like, okay, we want to go out tonight and have a good time, and being able to get access to those places was fun.
Were the other people snobby? Like were other models male and female? I mean, it's young people, very good looking. Everything's obviously based upon status and looks. But was there snobbiness? And then also would there be like surprising humility among these people?
You get a mix of both, right? Cause you, like in a model's apartment, you have your core guys that live there.
Yeah.
Or core girls, like, and then you'd have people that would come in from out of town that were just there for a week to do a bunch of shoots that were maybe from like Iowa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're, so you just got all walks of life. But like there was a time when I got really humbled by another model who was a photographer who'd been around. He was like our pack leader.
Yeah.
This guy is named Nico. He's from Holland. And, Nico de Bruin, he was a great photographer, but he was a good looking guy. He was a great model, had a nice career. And, he actually went to he came to my first wedding, you know, from my first marriage. And, I remember one time I had just came back from flying on the Concorde. Karl Lagerfeld put me on the Concorde. And, you know, my ego was at a level fucking 12 at that point. You know what I mean?
Just because, out of 10, 12 out of 10.
Yeah. It was like Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
So like the thing went higher.
Right.
And I remember like I was bitching about something in the model's apartment. And keep in mind, the model's apartment was like strung together. It was like a huge like studio, but it was like a little Filipino slum. Like everybody made curtains.
Right.
Like that's how you had your privacy. And I remember I was bitching about something and he pulled me aside and he was like, "Hey man, you need to shut your fucking mouth." He's like, "Stop talking about this shit." And he's like, "You're over here bitching and talking about how you just came back from Paris on the Concorde." And he's like, "Some of these kids have been here 3-4 years and they don't have anything to show for it in terms of like, going back to the whole little cosmopolitan little picture, he's just like, shut the fuck up." And I remember being like, God damn, you're right. Like, you know what I mean? Like I had to check myself and check my ego. So that kind of answers your question. Yeah. Like there are some people that like with values and a moral compass and standards and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you had your crazy people that are just there along for the ride, kind of vapid.
Yeah. It's another thing like this character that you have been born with. And obviously it's been helped by your upbringing too, people in your family, but you took a correction and you corrected and you were like, fuck, yeah, you're right. Fuck. And you just sink back into being Mike, which is amazing because you got this fucked up upbringing and it doesn't really fuck you up. It doesn't daunt you. You are who you are. It's like have you ever, about the book, the Tao, or what people would say, the Tao of Pooh. Yeah. That book. It's like, you're Winnie the Pooh. Like, that's just what you are. And you put Winnie the Pooh in this thing and you're Winnie the Pooh. You put Winnie the Pooh in the other thing, you're still fucking Winnie the Pooh. You can't fucking change. It's amazing to hear this. Like, you're in a fucking bar, you snap, you're on a beach, people are taking pictures of your dick. You're going to New York. Karl Lagerfeld has you on the fucking jet, and you're just like, "I'm Mike."
You want to hear the coolest story about Karl?
Sure.
So I had no idea who he was. And,
sounds like you.
Yeah, and it was crazy because I went into the agency every day. Like you just go in there and you wait around. And back then you'd go on castings. I don't know how it is now. So you go in, you see your agent, and then they tell you where to go. Like, hey, you're going to go here, 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 here for this casting. I go in and he's like, "I got something for you today that you're never going to get, but I'm going to send you on this casting anyways." And he's like, "You have no shot at this, but it's for Karl Lagerfeld. And he's looking for somebody. And you kind of fit the description." And he's like, "I'm going to send you, but you're not going to get it. You haven't been doing this long enough." So I go to this casting and apparently I was like 1 out of 5,000 people, but, like a week passed. I go into my agency and my agent, David, he goes, I have good news and better news." And keep in mind, at the time when I first started modeling, everything I did was like shirtless or like naked, or you know what I mean? Like I could get that job. Like if I went on a casting and it called for nudity, I could get that job. So when you're building your portfolio, you're building your book and your tear sheets. I mean, everybody wants these giant campaigns like the Abercrombie and Fitch campaign. No, what you want is like the Macy's catalog guy. Because those dudes just make bank and it's the easiest work on the planet. So I wanted pictures with suits and things like that. I wanted tear sheets with suits. And when I say tear sheets, it's not just photos that a photographer took of you. It's actually magazine worthy, shots of you in suits. So he goes, "Okay, good news number one, Playboy, not Playgirl, Playboy wants to shoot you in their fashion section for the suits, the upcoming collection of suits." He goes, "But you're not going to be able to do that." And he goes, "Because the better news is you got the Karl Lagerfeld job."
Oh, yeah.
And I go, "No, fuck that. Cancel Karl." I go, "I want to do the Playboy thing. I want the suits." And he's like, Karl Lagerfeld wants you. And he goes, don't ever change, man. Like, stay. Cause I'm like, I don't know who that is. And he goes, listen, I know you want this Playboy thing. And I want the Playboy thing for 2 reasons. I want the suit pictures, and I fucking know that my friends are going to see it. You know what I mean? My friends from college, my friends from high school, like everyone's going to see it. So I'm like, I really want you to cancel this. He's like, no, listen, let me call Karl and tell him about the situation and see if he can play with his schedule. So Karl is like, Karl's people, probably. He wasn't calling Karl.
Yeah.
His people are like, look, Karl wants to see him in person. Can you fly him out to Paris, have a meet with Karl? And he goes, Karl, put him back on a plane so he can make his shoot. And then if he's interested in moving forward, he'll fly him back out to Paris. So that was the compromise, right? So I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Like, perfect. I get to do both. You know what I mean? He sends me out. I get to the airport. It's weird when someone tells you you're flying all the way to Paris and you're only going to be there for like 4 hours and then turn right around and go to the United States, right? Like, so I get there, I take a cab to his studio and I'm sitting there waiting, and all his people, like his team, are like, yeah, Karl will be here shortly. This fucking guy walks in with his entourage, his sunglasses, and he's waving a fan, right? And I'm like, who the fuck this is amazing. Like this is, I walk up and I'm totally Jersey broed out. Like, I'm just like, hey, Karl, like go in and give him a hug and shit. And like, fucking, I didn't realize like he didn't like to be touched. Right. So I'm sitting there and he's just like, yeah, I have this idea for, I want to shoot this. And, I'd like to do some shooting right now. And he's like, don't worry, I'll have you back, to the airport. I have a driver for you, all this shit. So we're shooting. And I'm looking at the time. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, fuck, man, we're pushing. We're getting close. So finally he's like, look, you got to go, like, we take all these photos and stuff. He puts me in the car with this, I remember to this day, this dude's name was Jean-Michel, didn't speak English very well. Right. And I'm like really panicking that I'm not going to make my flight. So we get to the airport and Jean-Michel's like checking me in at the counter because, speaking French. And he like looks at me and he's like, unfortunately, you're going to miss your flight. And I'm like, motherfucker, I'm fucking angry. Yeah. Right. And he can see it. And, he's like, but hold on. We're trying to see what we can do. And he's talking to the guy at the counter and he looks at me and he's like, okay, there is a Concorde flight. And he's like, I called Karl to see if it's okay. And I'm like, yeah, fucking call Karl to see if he put me on the fucking Concorde. Like, I'm literally like, yeah, go ahead. Knowing like that's never going to fucking happen. Like, whatever, Jean-Michel. So he ends up calling Karl and gets off the phone and he goes, yeah, good news. Karl said, okay, he's going to put you on the Concorde. So you're going to be able to make your shoot. And I'm like, what the fuck did you just say to me? I mean, like, right. He goes, yeah, you're going to go on the Concorde. And I fucking like start dancing. I'm cheering and fucking, and he goes, you have never been on the Concorde? Keep in mind, this dude barely speaks English. And I look at him and I go, bro, no. I was a glorified secretary for my family's business a month ago, like 2 months ago. You don't understand. And this is the craziest shit. He looks at me and he goes, no, you don't understand. He goes, 6 years ago, I was a cab driver and Karl got into my cab. Wow. And I was like, God damn, motherfucker. Like that's, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like he understood what I was going through in terms of like the life-changing moment that Karl provided and totally understood. You know what I mean? And I ended up making it back and I made it to my shoot and I did the Playboy and then Karl brought me back and we worked together and then we worked together for, many things. I have my own bookshop with Karl Lagerfeld. Yeah.
There's a couple of things. You're a good person and people can tell. That's one thing. You're gifted with looks at a high level. Obviously, people can tell, and they respond to that. Why do you think Karl Lagerfeld's people picked you?
I don't know. I asked Carl one time, I was like, why do you pick me for things? And I remember he was just like, you're the same person clothed as naked. And not a lot of people can do that.
That's it.
That was his answer. But he genuinely looked out for me. Like, it's funny because, like people always like especially later on in life, like people wanted to always act like he was some kind of predator or something, like everyone's looking for these like salacious stories. Sure. And I'm like, he was like the most gentlemanly person ever. Yeah. Like, I remember asking like one of his assistants, I was like, does he have a boyfriend? Like, is he, you know what I mean? And he's like, no, the love of his life died years ago. And he's like, he's never recovered from that. And he's like, he works. Like, that's what he does. And he's just like, he told me one time, he's like, love is for young people. Like, that's Carl told me that. Yeah. I don't know why he liked me. I really don't. Like, I don't know why he was so generous. I would fly to France and he would go out of his way to make sure I was okay. And like, even when I was working with like high fashion, like supermodels, like Karen Elson and stuff like that. And I would listen to them talk about fashion, like they were curing cancer, which I always wanted to throw up. I was just like, Jesus Christ. You fucking, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't shit on what people think is important.
No, dude, but come on. I mean, there are bigger problems in the fucking world, dude.
They were literally talking about fashion and modeling like it was, or fashion like it was fucking brain surgery, and they figured out a way to cure.
I was wondering if there was that kind of shit.
Oh yeah, there is. Oh, big time. Yeah. Big time. You know what I mean? And it's like those things I didn't know anything. I was fucking jeans and t-shirt guy. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. But, he was really cool. I mean, he, everybody needs that big break, right? For me, like I thought it was going to be Bruce Weber at Abercrombie, because everybody told me when you become one of Bruce's guys, when you become one of his guys, right? Like, but I think you have to cross that line if it's not you. You know what I mean? Like, even do things that you don't want to do. But, with Carl, it was just genuine, and I became a Carl guy. And I always had that, in my tear sheets and my books, so that helped me get to Francois Nars. I don't know if you know Nars makeup. Like, I got that, I got other big jobs because just having Carl, of course, like on my side.
When you moved on from modeling, or you tapered out of it, did that relationship just dissipated? There was no effort on his part to be like, stay in touch with you.
No. He stayed in touch with me for a little while. I have, so this is crazy. I went my whole life of my daughters, like explaining to them that their mom and dad were models, and they didn't give a shit. Like, they would, so it was until like last year, I'm going through old boxes and I find old, I have a few boxes of like magazines and things like that, and stuff that their mother and I accomplished. And, they're looking through it, and there's handwritten letters from Carl. I have handwritten letters. Like, he would write me letters. Yeah. He stayed in touch and talked about me coming back, but I had made a commitment to myself and to my, my wife at the time that, I wasn't going to just, once I quit. I wasn't going to duck in, and because then you're not really quitting. Right. You know what I mean? And we had agreed that we both were quitting together, because modeling is not conducive for a healthy marriage. You have to be insanely grounded. Right. You think you can handle it, but when you're sitting there and you're supposed to have a weekend with your girl, and all of a sudden she gets a call and she has to fly to Paris, and she's going to be kissing a dude. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just not, you have to be all about that life. And at that point I'd moved on, and I made a promise, and I'd never look back. Like, they would call me all the time, and they're like, hey, can you come out to New York City and do something? And I'm just like, no, I'm busy. Yeah. Did you? My agent, when I quit, my agent didn't really believe me. He like went through the whole like, oh, okay, sure.
Right. Did you write Carl back when he wrote to you? Did you call him back and like call him, check in with him and shit?
Yeah. We talked. He was so kind. Like, when I told him I was getting married, he actually offered, this is crazy. He offered my wife to make her dress. And my wife said no. Oh my God.
It was
My wife was like,
a sign of things to come or something.
right. So, I'm glad I have it. But the funniest thing about my daughters going through this book, going through these boxes is, my one daughter's like, man, this is crazy. My younger daughter is like, wow, like I never realized it was like that. And I was like, yeah, it was like that. And my oldest daughter literally goes, how the hell are we not rich? That's the takeaway.
Well, it
My
looks
oldest
like
daughter.
you're set in that world of like money and beauty and fashion and high level shit, right? You're not in the Zales catalog. You're with Karl Lagerfeld and you're his dude or one of his dudes.
Dude's right. One of his people.
Fuck, dude.
There was an article that came out years later that some fashion magazine. I have it. I posted it on my Instagram one time, and they were like, "What are you doing now?" And I remember because he was fishing. He was trying to act like, what's it like being part of his posse? You know, it was like one of those things. Like, and I remember the guy goes, what are you doing now? And I said, I'm just your average everyday model turned gun dealer. And he fucking said, that's the greatest quote. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude. Other than you, and maybe a few other people, here's my observation. The better looking a person is, the more likely they are to be fucking crazy or like mentally whacked out, or they stay in a state psychologically that's like a teenager, and that contributes to them being mentally whacked out because they don't ever know how to deal with fucking reality because everybody treats them differently in every situation that they're in. Nutso. Like, like if I pick the most beautiful girls that I was with, it's like every one of them had some exceptional psychological imbalance going on. Did you see that also?
In other people?
Yeah, in other people.
Yeah.
Other than you, like you're like a balanced person. You were probably a little bit of a nutbag for a while because of all this shit around you, but it seems like there's a correlation between really good looking people and mental imbalance.
I think some of the best looking people on the planet are some of the most insecure people I've ever met, and when you see it, then you kind of accept, at least I'm pretty good at it. It's kind of like, that's just the dumb shit they say because that's the insecurity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you look at people and you're like, so I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, I'm not ever going to achieve like being the man that I want to be, but I think every year I show some sort of growth, and that's the essential part, right? Like showing some sort of growth or learning. Like, I look at my first marriage, and the reason why my second marriage is successful is because I was able to learn the mistakes I made from my first marriage. So you go into it and you're like, okay, look, I'm gonna grow from this. I have a chance to do over now. It's a do over. So those things that I would get in these negative ways, I'm not going to do that again. Right. And a lot of people, I think when you're coddled to, like when you're kind of a good looking person, it fucks you up, because not only are you fucked up because everyone's giving you shit, but you're also taking a lot of shit. You know what I mean? Like, once again, I don't think anyone's crying for fucking good looking. Boo-hoo! But like my wife, my first wife, I would see people fucking hate her for no reason. Yeah. They didn't even know her. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, you get a lot of that people judging you just off that they think you're going to be an asshole, or they think you're an asshole, so they're anticipating that. So I think that plays a lot into people's brains, Yeah.
There's something to be said about like the whole alpha beta thing, and I don't fully subscribe to it because it's an oversimplified way of describing reality. But we are a species of mammals, and we do have that kind of shit going on, even though maybe we don't have it going on as much as we used to. I'm still in Randy Meatball Randy phase here a little bit, but when I am where I'm supposed to be with being in shape, and I'm 6'4", people comment on me being good looking a lot. I don't look like that right now. That's okay. But that's the majority of my experience in life has been that. And particularly when you are 6'4". My mom said once that once it was apparent that I was way taller than everybody else and I was going to be way taller than everyone else, it didn't really matter that I was a sensitive kid and I just thought of everybody the same. People started picking on me and going after me. Once that it was apparent, people started going after me. You would think it would be different. Once I'm bigger, they're going to be afraid of me at first glance. And that probably happened too. But the other thing that happened was the chimpanzees in the group wanted to test to see if this height meant you're the alpha, and they're going to test. And that has been those two things together, being better than average in terms of looks and being way taller than everybody. It has brought me a lot of projection, like out of fucking nowhere for no fucking reason. So I can relate, It's been and especially if you're raised in a dysfunctional situation like I was, where you don't have a sense of self. I didn't even have lowest self-esteem. I had that for years, but I didn't even have a sense of myself. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't have boundaries, and I just let people come in on me, and I didn't fight back. I didn't know how. And so when people smell that you don't do that, then they double down on that.
Right.
And what would happen with me is it would get so bad, then I would flip the fuck out and the Hulk would show up after.
Right.
There was no like stop people like, you will fucking stop doing this to me. There was okay. Until I could feel it. I was like drowning in it. And then I would just lose my goddamn mind on people. And then they would fucking back off. So I can relate to what you're saying. People are really good looking people are often mentally whacked because people are projecting on them.
Yeah. It's very hard my wife now is stunning. But what really makes her stunning, like, is her personality and her soul. Like, she has a superpower that I've never seen a person ever have. My wife has never said a bad word about somebody, which I think is amazing. Like, I've never heard her talk shit. I talk shit all the time, right? Like, yeah, like, it's in me, even if I mean it in a good way. It's just, but like her ability to, even when people talk shit about her, to not say a fucking word. I'm like, she has a superpower.
Yeah.
And I tell people about it all the time. I'm like, I've never seen anybody. Everyone likes to think they've evolved or like, yo, I don't talk shit. It's like, yeah, but you do. Like, when you're seeing somebody on TV or something and you say some shitty comment about like this fucking guy, you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't. So it's crazy how some people can have beauty and just be amazing with everything they do.
Right.
And their soul and how good they are as humans. But I feel like a lot of people, my wife, she has a resting fucking bitch face.
Yeah.
Like,
so does mine.
Yeah. She looks like she'd be an asshole.
Yeah.
And she's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a defense mechanism, I think, oftentimes for females that don't have the ability to defend themselves too. Resting bitch face really does set people off. Like, whoa, I don't want to mess with that crazy shit.
Yeah, she looks angry.
Yes.
But, I think, like, back to the original question. Yeah. I mean, when you're doing those things and you're modeling and, that's why I had to get out of it. I had a college education, man. I had a degree. Like, I got to a point where I was just like, this is all bullshit.
Yeah.
When you get to that point where you think everything is shit, you gotta move.
Well, you gotta have a passion for what you're doing. Let's talk about these things. Lots of drugs.
Yeah, there was, at the time, ecstasy was at its height. We're talking 98, 99, ketamine, which has kind of made a comeback these days. I fucking hear a lot about it. So having access to, at the time, really good drugs, there wasn't fentanyl back then, so
there wasn't a lot of, was there not a lot of coke?
Yeah, there was. Yeah. But for me, like I was more like a ecstasy person, but you're in the New York scene.
Yeah.
Like it's just impossible to be or not be around it, even if you don't do it. But a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I would imagine because it's based upon looks, like you couldn't be a fucking wastoid. Like people like wastoids and would pull it together for shoots and then just go back to being fucking wastoids.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, I was guilty of that a couple times. Like, looking back on it now, like I would never have done what I did, but you could rebound. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's, staying up all night, going straight from, clubs in New York City. Some of them were open till 7 or 8 a.m. You know what I mean? You walk in at night and you come out and it's a vampire situation where you're looking at, but, showing up to things hammered, still drunk, still high. But you're young. You don't look like you've been beat up.
Right.
If I were to do that now, man, people would be able to be like,
I'm not wasting film on you. You look like Texas fried shit.
Yeah. I mean, I had a couple nights where, I went, cause sometimes you get a job and you weren't ready for it. I mean, one of the times I got a job, I was partying and in the morning my agent called and said, "Hey, they lost somebody. They need you now." And it was for like a muscle and fitness thing where they had me working out. So I had to literally go from, I was in New Brunswick at the time where Rutgers, and I literally had to go into the city and work out all day while they sprayed me with a bottle, and I am still high and I'm still drunk. You know what I mean? These are not things to be proud of, but it's just reality. It's life.
Well, I mean, you're in your 20s too. You might have been kind of fucking howling at the moon wherever you were, but now you have access to money and good looking people and decent drugs and
decent.
Yeah. Like good.
They were fantastic.
Yeah. High level druggage.
Yeah, man. It was an insane experience. It was crazy being around celebrities.
I was going to ask that. Like, did you hang with celebrities? Did you get to be friends with any celebrities?
Not really friends. I was running in the same circles, but I was always good at leaving people alone. But dude, so back then there was no, like I said, cell phones, like with cameras. So, people like people like Leonardo DiCaprio were in public doing crazy shit in the VIP section, like fucking banged out. You know what I mean? And, you could see like, yeah, he's clearly high. He's on a couch and he's feeling it.
Right.
But yeah, and back then nobody bothered anybody about that because you didn't have a phone. You just told the story and that could be bullshit, right. Now you can't do that.
You don't have a lot of, which I think says a lot about the industry. You don't have a lot of like lifelong friends from that phase, or do you?
I have one friend that lives in Vegas that was at the agency with me. That he was a model. He was a good friend of mine. We both left. He was from Vegas. I moved on when I got out of modeling. I moved to Ohio. I moved around, and then I got to Vegas, and I didn't have social media for many, many years. And then I got divorced in 2012, and I got social media. And my buddy Christos contacted me, and he goes, "Dude, I live in Vegas. Like I've been looking for you for years." Ooh. Yeah. So I have one really good friend that lives like literally 10 minutes from me, and we were in the same book, like the Click book and everything like that. So it's fun because, he'll be over sometimes and we'll just start chopping it up about like the good old days, and the crazy shit, like living in New York City together. And, cause me and him used to pal around together cause we go on castings.
Yeah.
They'd send all of the guys who had dark hair and, the same thing. Yeah. So you just ran in the same circles.
There's one shot of you that I saw 2 years ago or something when, I had to tell a joke. I was going to tell a joke about you. And so I needed to get like, I needed some meme material. So I needed to get like a picture of you from the fucking Playgirl or something. I was going to bust a joke. I probably shared it with you or I didn't complete the joke or whatever, but it had to be like a Mike's naked dick joke or something. And I did a search on images for you, and there's one shot of you. I think you're on a motorcycle. You're naked. You're like laying back on the motorcycle or something. You can see your abs. You're like ripped as shit. You're jacked.
Yeah, it was the body paint. It was for Polaroid.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you're jacked. And what were you doing at that time to get into that shape and hold that shape? And was that the time where you used Anavar? Like what?
No. Anavar came in my 30s.
Okay.
At that time, I cut out all carbs.
Okay.
Right.
Similar to now.
Right. All carbs. And I would literally work out for like 3 hours and I'd play basketball for another 2. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was in the most insane shape. And as a matter of fact, when I first got signed to Click, they were like, you're too big. Like you got to stop lifting.
Wow.
Like, cause they want you thin.
Yeah.
So you can fit everything, especially if you do like runway, they want you thin. Like that meaty muscular guy, they don't want that. So that was the hardest part, was abandoning lifting, cause I had been lifting all through college. So it was just being disciplined, being young, having like metabolism. But when I was modeling, I was 185 pounds. Like that was my weight, and I was a bigger model.
Yeah. Were you doing cardio?
Doing
cardio? Were you running at all? And
the basketball.
Yeah, but was there other like tread?
Yeah, I would do the elliptical for like an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, I was really putting in the work because I had to thin out because I could fit the clothes. Like, especially like things during like Fashion Week, which is like this week in New York, where there's all these runway shows and stuff. And I couldn't fit into those clothes. Like I have like big legs.
Yeah.
Like, and I would try to put on like pants from Dolce & Gabbana and it was like, you know what I mean? Like back then, like I was getting the jobs that I would get were like Liz Claiborne or like Tommy Hilfiger, or I could fit in like Sean John or any of those, like, cause back then it was a baggy style for some of those brands, but like I had tough times with like the Gucci's and so I had to keep it thin. You know what I mean? Like you had to, it's weird. You talk about what keeps you disciplined when your checkbook depends on you staying thin, you find a way to stay thin. That's like motivation.
Did you carb load at all, or were you just like fucking 12 months a year, 0 carb protein? 0
carbs, dude. I used to walk by bakeries and I was fucking like a vampire. Like my fangs would come out and I would just like keep walking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I've been in every diet, so I know that like I've been there. I definitely know like I'm going to fucking kill somebody. If I don't get carbs, I'm going to kill somebody. Mode. So you basically had to do that. How many years are you like attempting 0 carbs? How many?
It was like 2 years.
Fucked.
But dude, I was fucking, if you look, I actually have a funny story for you. You're going to appreciate this. Like if you look at my old photos, like I didn't have an ounce of fat on me. I was super thin, right? Like, so Adam Runula, who he works at Canik now. Big guy, big personality in the industry. I used to throw a party at SHOT Show for Eagle. And one year I show up to my own party and Adam had gotten there early and he went out and printed like 150 t-shirts with my Playgirl photo, on the front.
I love it.
So when I walked up, everyone was wearing these shirts. And my wife's like, who's on this shirt? I'm like, oh my fucking God. He really did it. Like he went and got the Playgirl photo off, online and then went to a print shop and posted it. And, at the end of the night, I was like signing the bill out and the girl goes, hey, and the girl was like running the show at the restaurant. She goes, who's the guy on the shirt? And I go, that's me. She goes, that's you. I go, I know, it looks like I ate that guy. Like, because this is me heavy.
Yeah,
you know what
Meatball
I mean?
Mike.
Meatball Mike, yeah. So it was really funny, because you look at yourself and you're like, I was 185 pounds. I'm like 245 now, and I lost 50 pounds.
Right.
So I can't imagine getting back to that weight. Like, I don't even know how I sustained. Yeah.
You were almost at 300?
Yeah.
Holy shit,
Yeah,
dude.
I have a big frame though, so like I'm lucky to, that's the same thing that kept me out of the Dolce & Gabbana pants is the same thing when I got huge and really heavy. I still carried it decent, but it was almost 300 pounds.
Fuck, I didn't know you got that high. I'd feel like
I
felt like I was going to die at 275. Like I would walk upstairs and be like, I'm going to die. Like,
right. Tying your shoes and shit when you get heavy like that, you're just like, fuck.
That's one of the things I'm looking forward to with test is. So part of the issue is why I stopped doing so much cardio is because it just plummets my test. I can feel it. Like I can feel it. So I'm looking forward to, and now when I touch weights, it's like old man strength too. It's like, I'm looking forward to keeping my test up and getting the cardio going again. So it doesn't go down. Right. And then I can take the extra weight off. Even some of the extra muscle is fine. But like where I am now is it's like in order for me to feel good, it's only gaining muscle that helps my testosterone go up. It's only lifting heavy. And I don't gain muscle without gaining fat. So although I feel better, like when I lift heavy, I'm fucking hungry around the clock. It never ends. If the amount of weight I have to lift to feel okay, requires constant calories because I am just lifting so much fucking weight and it's great. I feel good. But then on the other section, my weight is going up so much, even if it's mostly muscle, it's too much fucking weight for a 52-year-old guy. Mm-hmm. It's too much weight for my heart. Like my heart's healthy, but I can't just weigh 400 pounds and have a healthy heart. That it won't matter. My heart's going to be like, yeah, I'm not that healthy. Like I can't fucking do that. So I'm really looking forward to like boosting the test and then bringing in a lot of cardio so that, and my test won't drop. Right. Mm-hmm. Really looking forward to that. If in this world of modeling, is there like, this is what a real man is, and this is what a horseshit man is? Because there's a lot of that in the world of men. Like, this is what makes a legitimate man who's fucking buff or ripped or fucking looks amazing and is super fit. This is what a man is, and this is not what a man is. Is there any of that shit going on?
No. Listen, I'll tell you, if you have a problem with the LGBTQ community, you're not going to make it as a model. Yeah. And this is before like kind of we woke up, right? Yeah. I know some people eye roll at the whole woke thing, but like this is before we kind of recognize those things. But it was New York City in the late 90s and you had all walks of life. You know what I'm saying? Like if you had issues with people that were different than you and, like obviously people sometimes can be unkind, but for the most part, that same energy was there in New York City. Yeah. Everybody loved each other. You were a New Yorker. You were there. So no, there wasn't anything like that. I never felt like this is what a man's supposed to be. Cause I mean, a lot of this shit I was doing was not manly.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Sure. Like man's definition, but, I never had any issues with that. You know what I mean? Like, I think the toughest thing for male models at the time was this was before the Me Too movement. And this was before. So like a lot of things I missed out on because I know myself and I'm not gay. I'm gay friendly, but I'm not gay. Sure. I couldn't make that crossover. And I used to have this conversation with my wife at the time, who was a pretty big fashion model. And, I told her one day, I said, you're lucky. And she's like, why? And I said, all the photographers you work with are all straight men. I said, everybody I work with is a gay man. Yeah. And I'm like, it's easier to be comfortable with yourself if you're going to do something to compromise your moral compass, right? When it's something you're attracted to. It's like, okay, I just got to sleep with her.
Right.
You know what I mean? Can we make it darker in here? Like, but I never really had that. I had the other side of it. So I had to maneuver and navigate that world. And by no means am I saying anything disrespectful, but it's just like, this was before we were woke to the fact that people were gatekeepers.
Right.
So there were jobs that flat out fucking people told me, or I had instances like with Bruce fucking Weber that if I would have crossed the line, I probably could have had a bigger career. I could have gotten more places, but I couldn't live with myself. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, not all interactions are bad. And I used to, when guys used to hit on me and stuff like that, I would always tell them, like, I love your taste in men,
Right,
but in this lifetime, we're going to be friends, and the next one will be great lovers.
Right.
Trust me.
Right.
But you kind of, that was one of my issues with the industry. And like I said, I don't think anyone's crying for the male model,
Right.
but like, it just was tough navigating that world, knowing that you were losing out on jobs, and people were doing dirty things to get jobs. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
If you would have had a bigger career if you would have jerked off the fucking photographer, or
yep. Yeah.
if
And
you
it's
would
just
have
like
done gay for pay or some shit like that. Like,
well, exactly. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with the people that chose to do it. But it's just like, that was a very frustrating thing that was more frustrating to me than anyone being like, you're not being manly enough. You know what I mean? Like, it was
Sure.
more like, I'm in this world, and, like I said, it's New York City, and everyone thinks like, okay, like
anything goes.
Anything goes. Yeah. Just enjoy it. Have fun.
Well, I'll tell you this. Maybe this will help settle your mind, even though your mind is settled. I had a friend that was a gay Episcopal priest, and he went to seminary in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And there is a whole lot of, I'll give you a better grade on this test if you give me a hand job going on inside of the seminary school for priests. Like, it's a regular thing.
Oh shit. Women have it done to them all the time. Yeah. I mean, this is the way the world works. You know what I mean? They use you use them sometimes.
It's
you know
not
what I mean?
it's just the high fashion models. It's in
Yeah.
the spiritual religious world, there's tons of shit like that goes on.
Yeah, there's a lot of gatekeeping in modeling that I just was.
Yeah,
it was annoying.
Yeah, well,
and it turned me off from it.
Good. I'm glad. Again, what the Tao of Mike, Winnie the Pooh, wins out. I'm just gonna be Mike. I don't care if you want me to jerk you off for this. I'm not doing it. We'll do one more question about modeling, and then we can talk about mental health a little bit. Okay. So running a 501c3 can be challenging money wise. There's always a need for money, for you, for home, for kids in college, that kind of shit. And you're not loaded from modeling. You're not rich from modeling. Here's my opinion. You look good enough right now to be in GQ or Men's Health. For sure. For sure you do. Men's Health for sure. For sure. You could go on a program for 3 months and look even better. And this is clothed too. It's not like ripped shirt open or like your abs or whatever.
Right.
But you look good enough right now to do GQ or Men's Health. If you got an opportunity, or if somehow I was going through life and I end up becoming friends with the guy who's is an editor for GQ or something like that, and I get in his ear and I go, you got to see my buddy Mike. He used to be with Lagerfeld. He's fucking 50 years old. He looks amazing. Can you get him a thing? And the guy was like, yeah. And you could go and do a shoot for Men's Health or GQ and make some fucking money. Would you do it?
Well, there's a lot of irony in that because I know what those paid for. I was in Men's Health. I know what they pay.
Or let's say it's something.
All right, but let's pretend I did pay.
Yeah, money's worth.
I would do it, and I would also do it for the exposure for WGTA.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there was an opportunity that it benefited the company and paycheck. Would you get in front of a camera again?
100%. I have no issue
That's all I
doing
needed
that.
to hear. I think that's all the universe needed to hear too. Just wait, Michael. No.
But let me tell you the funniest story about Men's Health. The very first time I ever got into Men's Health, you're gonna laugh at this. They contact me, they hire me. I said, "What is this story about?" They go, "It's about a guy who lost a ton of weight because he ate Subway every day, and you're gonna play the guy." So this is before Jared was Jared. So they give me khakis and a jean shirt, and the shoot takes place in a Subway, right? In a Subway. So Men's Health comes out, and I'm walking around New York City, and people are like, "Oh my God, you're the dude that lost all the weight," because the article's out and I said, no, I'm just the model who played him. You know what I mean? But this is before they used Jared as the campaign guy. So I was Jared before Jared was. Hey, we all know how that story ended.
I thought you were going to be like, and then they kept rotating that thing, and then people are coming up to you. You're that fucking pedophile.
No.
You're that fucking pedophile. You fucking scumbag.
Right. But I have, it was one of the magazines that when my daughters were looking through the box, I was like, because they had no idea who Jared is.
Well, good.
They're like, "Oh, look." I'm like, "Yeah, I was Jared before Jared." So I thought it was funny.
I did want to ask you about that. Like, if there was an opportunity, like, I do think you're in that position again. We're coming full circle. I was fucking half joking with you 4 years ago or whatever. And I was like, dude, I'm telling you, if you just get jacked again, the power bars.
We'll just manifest it. We'll manifest
like,
it.
watch. Now that we've talked about it again, watch something comes up.